your agenda, taking up a lot of your time. We would like to have a broader picture. I realize that the people that are doing the traffic safety are very concerned about the accident that happened in their particular neighborhood, but we'd like to work to get what's called the complete streets idea. Many other towns, I know that Groton is moving forward with this, where it's mainly an idea of painting the streets so that where we can have pedestrian sidewalks and bikeways. It's not everywhere, but where they can be more pedestrian friendly and more bike friendly, the streets marked and a lot of it, some of it are state roads, and we have to work with the state. Putting up signs to share the road, putting up signs, and it's terrific now where we have the markers right in the middle of the street that says pedestrians have the right of way, and people do stop. And if we could do that, one of the more hazardous places is on Fairhaven Road, where it goes under the railroad. It's a creepy place to walk and a hard place to bike because it's so narrow. If something could be done to paint the road, that just to warn people that there are a lot of pedestrians around there. But what we'd like to do to begin this is to do a pedestrian audit. Laura's already done that, and
I took it for a test drive.
Yeah, with her students, and it's something the students can do. They can work up the data so that we can go forward with a grant, because the whole point of this is to get a grant to look at where there are areas where we can make it a little more walkable, a little more friendly, and the Complete Streets webinars have data that show that in small towns and in large cities where you have complete streets, the streets become safer, the cars slow down, they enjoy being there. Sometimes it's just putting out bins of flowers or containers of flowers that just remind people they don't have to drive 40 miles an hour through the town and to get from one end to the other. So that's topic 5, and the last one is topic 7, which is the community food choices. That's what we chose to do, the look back for equity. I think it worked out very well. We did a survey of the people that use Care and Share and the people that use the farmers market. We got a lot of positive responses that the town was doing a lot for them. They spoke very positively of the bus system. We did talk to Kathy Wilson about that. There's a couple of recommendations that we'd like to expand the farmers market situation, but the one thing that the volunteers made a point of is that first one, to create an intentional communication strategy among agencies. Easier said than done. I know it's difficult, but they felt that the schools, the town, and the volunteers needed some mechanism where they could get together and figure out what the left hand and the right hand were doing. So I just leave that as that was about the only thing that their wish list was, to have more communications amongst the groups. So that's all I have. I was hoping that you would have some questions or comments and where you'd like us to go. I meet tomorrow with Gary. We're having a workshop on grant writing, so we can get to the meat of this. This was all fun and games. The whole point was to show this program that we were organized enough to be eligible for these grants. If people don't know what the grants, from what I know now, and I'll know more tomorrow, they call it a low bar grant. In other words, it's there to be used, and you just have to show up and write something that's decent, and you'll get something. I think most of the grants are $250,000. It's not big bucks, but that's not pocket change either. Once we get certified, only towns that are certified, and there's only 30 or 40 towns that are certified. So we have a small competition, and if we get in there soon. Because more towns are trying to get certified, then we'll have more competition. So we're kind of at the head of the pack. So I'd be happy to take any comments or questions.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you for the whole commission, your hard work on this, and it's important work. I was skeptical of, and we spoke before we banged the gavel tonight, I was skeptical of the whole sustainable CT because it seemed like just a, I don't know, I guess I use the example of kindergarten, like if you do all these things, you get points and you get a star on your forehead. And that's kind of how they've set it up. But the truth, part of it is, yes, grants, but the motivation and giving towns opportunities for progress.
Yeah.
Because we've done so much, as you pointed out. We signed up for sustainable CT, and we already, like, all the things we've already done have gotten us to the first stage. And at COG, at the Council of Governments meeting, the 22 towns that are represented there, only 3 towns had achieved bronze at the time, and we've just joined that, and we've just been in this a couple months. So kudos for the town for being forward-thinking already, but you guys to take this and keep running with it, because that's what we need right now too, is that momentum. So thank you, and looking forward to the grant writing tomorrow.
Yeah,
I have one comment, and that was the climate change issue. Was that topic 4?
Yes.
Okay. We've done a whole lot of work there, and maybe we should do this offline and not here in the meeting, but we've changed some of the drainage in that pond that you referred to down by the beach.
Yeah.
That's a whole new drainage system because of climate change, and all our zoning regulations have changed for living shoreline, and not only encouraged but required. And FEMA regulations, and now you'll see the houses down by the beach are being built up at a higher level. Maybe they expect more, and I come from a naive perspective. It's not my business, it's not my expertise, but I think we've done a whole lot, and maybe the information didn't get to you.
I was going to say, this is something that the intern worked with Gary, and Gary couldn't do everything.
Yeah.
It was hard to pull him off everything else he's got to do.
Absolutely, I understand.
And the other thing is, this doesn't end. I mean,
No,
once we
no,
get
no, no,
certified,
right.
we're just at the beginning. So they did give us, we had about 4 pages of recommendations, which I'm not going to bore you with.
Yeah.
And they gave us an idea of what we could do more. And the whole point of this is, as you say, you've done a lot. They want the town, to make it known, so that we can then report it, and if we report it, then we are eligible for grants. So that's the problem, is that there's these things that are in the corners, and and maybe a couple other people know, but we have to organize it enough to put it in their format. That is kind of a pain. But once it's in their format, then they have reviewers throughout the state that look at it. And by the way, this money is not state money, it's private money, which means there actually is money there. I'm an ex-state employee, so I know.
Other questions?
One and two, I think one of the things to point out too is I know we've done it down on Grand Street and so forth, up in my neighborhood, Colony, Quailcrest, and Allscott, and that we've planted the trees in the drainage areas,
We
which
got a
are,
lot of credit for that.
and that that has been, it's just nice seeing all that to be done too. I'm really interested to hear what Laura may have to say about the pedestrian and bike audit, because sadly there's we had that meeting about a week and a half ago with several citizens, and you can really understand their frustrations, because there's roads like Dean Road where if you put a bike path in that, you'd have to no longer allow cars on it. It's just not wide enough. It's sad, but it'd be great to identify what areas could we possibly get that in, because state roads, it gets real difficult as to what they'll let you do. And I know there's some hope that we'll get some rework on 161 and by that nasty curve and straighten that out in the years to come, and possibly, if not, at least get some pedestrian access in there too. But I'd love to hear about Laura's research and so forth.
We're like past that, getting the gold star.
Laura, you have to come up to you got it.
The whole world wants to hear you, Laura.
Yes.
Apparently our audio is bad enough, but you definitely want to get on a microphone.
One of the nice things that we were even surprised about starting the process, because you are wondering, like, is it a piece of paper or are we really doing something, is that they really did design the resources and the personnel properly. We had these students from Eastern that were highly trained and knew what they were doing. They didn't have to think about it. They knew who to contact. They were phenomenal. And the program is designed with the resources. So like the Complete Streets is not just a collection of webinars, but how to go about doing it in your town. So what I did is I picked one piece of it, and at International Coastal Cleanup this year, which is when we have all the high school kids downtown picking up the beach, I had 5 teams go out and do the AARP walking audit that Sustainable makes available, and they did 5 spots on Main Street to collect the data. And so they're gonna help me then go through all those surveys and see if the data's useful. Like,
Right.
so it's taking it for a test drive to see if it's something that can work for us. But the beauty of it's already been created.
Right.
And we can adjust it for East Lyme, but it's that foundation of, okay, so where are the good spots? And where are the spots we might wanna look at?
Right.
But we can actually design it so we can send volunteers out to easily collect the data for us. Because it's just surveys, you're just
Yeah.
filling in surveys.
Right.
And they're testing also to create it as an app. We're gonna try to create it as an app, so you could download on your phone and everybody could get the data, and the town would then know all the neighborhoods. So the Sustainable CT allows all those resources to be available, and to go get the training. So, that's the but that's the walking piece, because it maps it
great.
all out for you.
Thank you.
I think it becomes a great framework for you to work from, and that's great. And I think it's great that your commission has a real substance, has this plan that you really can carry through, and it will last us years and years, and really there's no end to it. So I think that's great. Not that your commission hasn't had substance. You've had water studies and all the other, but this is we're going to be able to really count on you folks to put this together and keep hearing back from you. I'm sure there are other comments and questions.
Yeah.
Mr. Salerno?
Just a question. Could you give us an example of what some of the grants that are awarded? You said they're on the order of $250,000.
I don't know about the money. I did look in to see, now I'm gonna have to, total recall here. Some of the towns have gotten money for senior bus. They've gotten money for cleaning up parks and fixing up store fronts and that sort of thing. I'm trying to think of some of the other things. I know that there's a big push for mass transit, which doesn't, we don't even have anything to start with, where they got a trolley system and they paid for an upgrade on that. So that's the sort of thing that they're
Is it
looking for.
is it a wide open process, or they have themes like when they're awarding grants?
I think there are themes, but you can choose which one you want.
Okay.
I'll find out tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to know.
All I know is that you have to be certified, and if you're certified at a bronze level as we are, you're eligible for a certain maximum amount of money. If you're certified at a platinum level, you get more, or a silver level, rather. There's a next step up. There's 2 steps. We made the lower of the 2. And there's only 2 towns that have made the upper one, Hartford and Greenwich.
Okay.
Who have a lot more resources, and that is how much money you get. There are 3 different private foundations that are footing the bill for this.
That was you just answered my question. Okay, so it is all private money, and there's different foundations.
It's all private money. Of course, it can be matching with state money. There's always ways to take a grant and make more of it.
Okay.
If you want to deal with the state or the feds.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Daigle?
The work is outstanding, even though it's just getting you in at the ground floor, but it's just exciting to think of what you may decide to go forward with from a grant standpoint, with all the different categories and how you may go forward. It'd be nice to see when you get to the point where you're ready to decide what you want to pursue from a grant standpoint.
Okay.
So, that'd be great.
Does anybody here have any ideas they want to put forward I can throw out tomorrow at the...
Oh dear. Talking about being on the spot.
It's a wish list time.
I have only 100 I could give you, so.
Oh, okay.
I think it'll let you, baby steps tomorrow,
Yeah.
but I have some ideas, and I have some things on the board that, projects that we're working on that I think would fit into this, especially when we're talking, well, you've been part of the Traffic Advisory Council, the one meeting we had and the next one coming up. I think we should, put your ideas in with that group as well and interplay them a little bit. I think it's a smart move.
Well,
I'm very interested in the painting of the roads, something we don't do here. We paint the line down the middle and we paint some crosswalks on town roads. Most of course, the main roads are state roads, so we're at their mercy. But even as we talked about the Traffic Advisory Council and trying to slow people down, painting slow.
Yeah, well,
on the road, or painting a message on the road that is
Yeah, I've been-
acceptable.
All these techniques matched out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all done, you just
Yeah.
have to pick which one.
Yeah,
I've been
and plug it in.
biking places where just on the road, it says share the road. It literally is printed right
Right.
there, share the road.
Right.
It just reminds people, and also even on Dean Road and some of the roads that are, ridiculously
Identified.
narrow, even if you just put a white line that
Yes.
marks where assuming the road is wide enough to have a line, it's
It's proven to slow traffic down if you have that white line
then
over there on a narrow
then
road.
As a biker, I'll bike on that white line and hope that the cars will respect
Give
that
you
white
some,
line,
yeah.
and at least,
Yeah.
move around a little bit. The state law says you're supposed to give me 3 feet, but that's not gonna happen.
We have been awarded a corridor grant, matching funds, $250,000 for studying Flanders Road to put bike lanes in and a sidewalk, which we desperately need to connect our two sides of our town.
Connect the schools.
And the schools.
Yeah,
In the schools.
connect to schools.
And I think you should be part of that conversation as we start moving into this. I think we'll maybe deputize you as being the contact for this study that's supposed to start any time now.
Okay.
Hey, Mark, if
Yes,
I
more
may add
questions,
to,
I'm sure.
I'm ex officio to planning, and they're doing the POCD, and there's definitely seems like there's a lot of synergy in what you're doing and what they're doing. So I don't know if you've, I know Gary can get you in touch with them, but they were aware of this. I didn't know if no one made it tonight, but they're starting their process. They have to plan a conservation development. A lot of stuff you're talking about. You may want to touch base with that
Yeah.
subcommittee, or maybe.
A lot of that went in, we got some extra points, big points, for doing that. And that's where the intern was working with Gary and did contact some people on the zoning. That got in here, and the reviewer saw it and said, yes, I think.
So some of what you guys did we may want to get that rolled into the POCD.
Right, yeah.
So you
and I
did a lot of
know-
work that they're talking about similar topics.
Yeah.
So.
Could I ask what the time frame for the update for the POCD is?
So the POCD has to be approved, it's end of the year, end of next year, December 2021. So they're looking to have like a rough draft by July of next year.
Okay,
They're gonna, yeah. So
Oh, that's
they've kind of just started the last 3 months, and
Yeah.
now would be a really good time to engage.
yeah, because these folks work on an August to August, so if you're done in July, then that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
We'll make the
I
deadline.
noticed under topic 7, the last one, create a summer meal program for children.
Yeah,
And interestingly, we started one about 3 years ago, and they discontinued it after 2 weeks because nobody came.
oh, well, okay.
Interesting.
Some of this is communication, some of it times change, and hey, if we don't need it, then we don't need it.
But I think that it would be important to try that again.
Yeah.
I think
The-
there is a need for it.
Yeah, the thought was that, kids who need breakfast and lunch during the school year don't need it during the summer too. So that was the impetus for suggesting that.
You're talking about a kids' farmer's market?
No,
Go.
a meal program.
They go to the
Yeah.
school and
Yeah.
get meals for them.
Yeah,
so.
the kids' farmers market is something that New London has done, and the Children's Museum personnel have shown some interest.
Yeah.
So that's what that came from.
Great. Lots of opportunity there. I mean, you're not reporting on what you did, you're kind of also so much potential. It's wonderful.
Well, I hope so.
We all set?
Yes, I'd like to ask, after they decide what they're going to focus on, that they come back to us and see if we can support them in any way.
be great to have you guys come back and give us quarterly updates every couple, 3 months or so to hear back from you, how you doing, and maybe, and again, we should probably connect a little bit because there's some stuff offline that I can just kind of steer you to.
Okay.
You're right, Gary's a great resource, but he's also an overworked resource,
Yeah.
or he pulled in so many different directions. So maybe I can be of assistance or at least point you in other directions.
Okay.
Be happy to. Thank you, the three of you, and the one missing as well. Thank you for all your hard work on this. No, the pay isn't that great. So we have a 2020 census, U.S. Census coming up, and it's been. I went to a census meeting up at Eastern State University with Lieutenant Bisowitz and
Lieutenant Governor Bisowitz.
Lieutenant Governor Bisowitz
Yeah,
and a
that's
few
big,
others,
yeah.
and we're talking about how to make sure we get an accurate head count, population count in our community. You know, we don't have a community that is been identified as troubling as far as getting the counts. There are people that fit in different categories, and and there'll be some issues with some people in our community. So we want to try to reach out to certain pockets of our community, such as the senior center, churches, the food lockers that we have. So Karen Share and also St. John's has a very successful one on Thursday nights, and maybe some other groups to come together just to make sure we're reaching the population and getting the word out on the census that all they do is count. They don't share. They don't share information. So undocumented people in our country will not be shared with ICE or anything else, or the IRS or anything else. It's very important that all we're doing is counting the number of people in each town. We met in Willimantic. And Willimantic's a great example of they're going to have difficulty there. They have college kids that need to be counted on campus. They're not counted in their hometown. There is a bilingual or there's many different languages spoken in Willimantic, and that can be troubling as well and difficult to reach out to people. And perhaps some undocumented people as well, non-citizens up there that need to be counted, but there's this trouble with them not wanting to come out and give their name and be counted. So that's a unique, in London the same, they have 2 colleges in their town, et cetera. So we have a census coming up, and we have a responsibility to establish a census complete count committee. And I will be appointing people on it if it's your pleasure. And it would be, again, the senior center director and some faith organizations and the food, the Care and Share, et cetera, to make sure that we're reaching the whole community in the communications. The census starts in March. And the snapshot date of the census is April 1st. So they want a snap of where do you live? Where are you putting your head down on a pillow on the night of April 1st? And that's how the census works. So that's coming up. They're going to reach out for the first time and do this. They're going to try to do this, a great majority of it, by internet. So you'll be given, you'll get some kind of communication that says go online, enter this code in or whatever, and do your census. And it's 4 questions. It's pretty simple. We're hoping most Americans, 50% of Americans, will do it by that. Then there'll be a mailing where you can mail the postcard back in, which became popular. And then as necessarily, they'll have door knockers going out to actually go door to door to make sure we get everybody. But there are people, that need to be found, and addresses that might not be on the list. So we're going to want to appoint this committee.
Have there been any directions that have come from the national government?
Yes.
There's been controversy about whether illegals should be counted.
Right, there's all that. So that's playing into it a little bit, and that's the concern of the Census Bureau of the United States government is all the politics that's going on and all the chatter will reduce the count. The count's very important. This is where we get our federal and state funding from. If it's not an accurate count, we don't get our fair share. And that's what's important. And Connecticut's very concerned that we want to make sure we get our fair share. So Connecticut's putting a big push on. Thus, the lieutenant governor is heading this up herself, obviously with a lot of help. But if it's your pleasure, if you would allow me to appoint, I think there's probably a motion to appoint a census committee.
We don't have any names.
I also have another question. Are
Yeah.
the prisoners that are in town, how are they to be included in the census? Are they counted as part of our town's population?
They'll be on the committee. Thanks for reminding me. They are they are putting their head on a pillow in the town of Niantic that evening, or the town of East Lyme, village of Niantic, that evening. And therefore they will be counted in our prison. Places like colleges and prisons will be able to, they have a census already. I would hope the prison has a sense of who's in the building. And they'll be able to help us with that, and then we'll have specific workers for the prisons. It's a good question.
Along that same line, what about we have National Guard base and snapshot date?
Snapshot date.
So
That was the easiest way for me to, because all these questions
Yeah.
and all these hands were
Right,
going,
has to be-
well, what about a commuter student, and what about a study
So,
abroad kid?
You're here
and
on
what
April
about-
1st.
Where are you on April 1st?
Great,
You know, so my kid down in North Carolina in college is being counted down there.
gotcha.
So when I fill that out, I have to fill it out that
Yep.
way. Good question.
Do you have any names first? Because I just have.
Well, I was just going to establish establish a committee and then appoint people on it at a future time. But establish a committee, and if it's okay with you, I'll reach out to people to be on the committee. It's not a political committee; it's just a working committee, almost a task force, who will gather ideas, come together, gather ideas to make sure we're reaching the community at large. The government will be putting out posters and mailings, and they'll be able to reach their communities, their fellowships on the details of the census. That's the whole purpose, is to be able to spread this out, not just for the town website, because not everybody looks at the town website, believe it or not. So there might be other ways to reach people.
Because you just want a general authorization.
Maybe just a general.
Move to authorize the first selectman to
That's a good one.
appoint, do you have any idea how many people you want to appoint?
As necessary.
I'll move to authorize the first selectman to appoint people as necessary to the 2020 Census Complete Count Committee.
Second?
Any other comments? Again, it's probably, it's just a task force, working task force. I would welcome your ideas on people to bring in on this. It won't be a lot of heavy lifting, again, in the town of East Lyme. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? The next and final part of our new business tonight is a discussion to remove the first selectman from the police commission. What?
That guy.
So
Is this similar to impeachment?
Jeez. We'll be serving subpoenas later.
In my conversation to the president of Ukraine,
Strike that from the record.
Okay.
so there is a state statute that the police commissions must be 3 people, 5 people, or 7 people. If you remember when we went back, and I think you have the ordinance in front of you, you have the town ordinance that says 7 people, which will include the first selectman as a regular member. It was very important to me, passionately important to me, that when we established the police commission, that we had some, pardon the pun, law and order. That it was in its infancy. We've never done this before, and I wanted to be part of that. It was also important that we held our promise that when we switched from a resident state trooper system to an independent, the operations at that time would stay neutral in cost, and that was very important to me. And obviously,